Our follow-up question is, what metrics or indicators do you use to measure the success of your wellness programs with Gen Z audiences?
That's a great question. And I think that's really one that I often discuss with my corporate clients. And the really assessment and ongoing feedback is incredibly important because for the reasons that you just said, we need to know how we may have great intentions, we may have dedicated a lot of resource, but how are users, essentially the professionals who are using the services that we're offering, experiencing the impact? Is the experience that we had hoped match the impact that the users are experiencing is really important. So I think this is where I think the wellness in the workplace, yes, just last week, I actually hosted a webinar for Harvard alumni for mental health. And the topic was wellness in workplace. And I had two panelists, and as I was facilitating, playing you and asking them questions from their respective expertise, what is one thing we could do to really ensure that we're improving mental health? And one of the things they mentioned is metrics. Is to say we have to have a continuous sort of a metrics that starts from before you implemented the program to see, and the what company may want to measure may be different, whether it is a sense of engagement, whether it is how they feel supported in their mental health, maybe it's how well they feel they are supported in their job. There are many dimensions, but really being clear about what is that you want to improve, um, and what do you want? How do you ask questions to assess that before the program is implemented and to continue to assess. And continuous assessment is so important because it gives us an opportunity to revise and pivot and to say, okay, this program that we launched is working really well in these areas, but not so much in these areas. So it gives companies and people who are implementing a program to be able to adapt to the needs and experience of their professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
Even though this is, if I may, Faye, I'd like to add one other dimension that we
Please.
haven't touched upon, and that is related to both how do we communicate with our professionals on mental health and wellness at workplace, as well as program launch and assessment, and that is the critical role the managers play. I think the executives, the founders, CEOs, they have a huge impact because often what they say, what they do actually set the stage and have an impact on the climate. There's a number of research that shows when a leader, a visible leader that people look to for their vision, when they communicate their own commitment to mental health, employees feel supported. They feel this is a company where, because someone who is in a high level of leadership is committed, and when leaders actually talk about their own or their loved ones' mental health, it makes a difference. I ask this question almost always when I have conversation about wellness in workplace, and I ask them how many people have had their personal mental health concerns or someone they care about, and almost always everybody raises their hand because that's true for me. So I think if we could really connect to one another at that level, like this is a shared experience that we used to not talk about in workplace, but now we're creating opportunity to say all of us has been touched by mental health concern, whether on a personal level or experience of our loved ones. I think that brings a sense of solidarity, and the managers play a critical role because they're the ones who are having that daily contact, often, even virtually. In fact, you and audience might find it interesting that according to a Gallup poll, managers have a more impact on a professional's mental health than a therapist because managers have such an authority and power and influence on how professionals feel on a day-to-day basis, depending on how things are communicated, how feedback that is given, how managers respond when things don't maybe go well as you had hoped. So these are many ways managers have an experience. This is why one of the things I focus on is training managers to become an empathic and transparent communicators and really see themselves as a coach. I think being a coach, kind of shifting that mindset as someone who is just managing someone, who is tracking the performance, to someone who, as a coach, is invested in young professionals, both personal and professional growth, I think really shifts the relationship. The conversation, topic of the conversation may be similar, but really when you approach your young professional as a coach and says, I see that you have had difficulty meeting a deadline.
Mhm.
Instead of saying, coming from a place of just being performance focused, a manager could ask, what contributed to
Mhm.
your challenge and what was it hard for you? To
Mhm.
really invite their young professional to be able to be honest, because only then can actually manager be able to support them to
Mhm.
make an improvement. I think when young professionals or all of us really feel there isn't that space and opportunity to be honest and reflective, just like what we said very in the very start of this conversation, there isn't an opportunity for to be reflective and collaborative in thinking about how can I shift? How can I improve?
Okay, great. So thank you so much for the answer. It makes me think about the power of managers and the skill sets that they have to learn,
Mhm.
upskill what managers once believed that they needed to know. And now there's another level, another layer to it. Certainly not all managers are trained, or how would I say this, like conditioned to do that. But I think it's such a skill that we cannot ignore anymore. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you find it helpful. We'll soon be back with our next podcast. In the meantime, please share this episode with your friends and colleagues.